Today on the Family Answer Man, we're answering your questions about issues that arise from blended families during the holidays from a biblical worldview on the Family Answer Man program. This is David Orgis, and I am here with Dr. Mark Crosby, the Family Answer Man himself. Our time is designed to answer questions commonly asked in both the counseling and church settings. And our goal is to answer general questions from a biblical worldview through the lens of our collective years of experience and education to help you, our listeners, have a stronger, healthier, and happier family. We want to thank the incredible people at Winter's Air and Days Smokehouse and Specialty Meats for underwriting today's show. Winter's Air is located in Denham Springs and services the Denham Springs and surrounding areas. And Days Smokehouse is located at 35770 LA Highway 16, just north of Denham Springs. Now, this show is not a therapy session, and this is not specific advice to your situations. Mental health is a very serious issue. Family dynamics are and can often be very complicated and dynamic. So, for in-depth answers to your questions, we encourage you to seek professional counsel specific to your unique circumstances. We do hope that today's episode of the Family Answer Man will encourage you and inspire you to make changes that will lead to a stronger, healthier, and happier family. Dr. Mark, we're going to be talking today a little bit about an issue that affects a lot of people. Mm-hmm. It is the issue of blended families, right, and how that affects parents, how that affects in-laws, right, how that affects children during the holiday season. Right.
And we touched on this a little bit in our last episode last week, so hopefully the viewers and listeners, I should say, maybe got a chance to hear that. But the reality, as we said before, and we'll reiterate this, is the importance of traditions and the importance of how we spend our holiday traditions and how we enjoy them and who all do we include in our traditions. Unfortunately, there are some people who have made it clear that our traditions are only for maybe our extended family or maybe for our nuclear family. And when you begin to share that or limit people from being a part of your tradition, especially during the holidays, that can be very disappointing and very discouraging and very problematic and very divisive. And so you start seeing this beginning to happen. For example, someone may have the tradition of Uncle Joe, carves the turkey, and maybe now that you're married, your spouse wants to carve the turkey or whatever. And so now you have who's going to carve the turkey, okay? Or whatever it may be. Or Christmas gifts are given on Christmas Eve. That's a tradition for a lot of people. Christmas gifts, Christmas Eve night, after church or whatever. And so many will go, but wait, I think gifts should only be given on Christmas morning, bright and early. That's how I was raised, they'll say. And now you start having the conflict. And now you start having the traditions that are, again, clashing, so to speak. And how do we manage that? How do we work through that? How do we compromise so that everybody can have a joyful and meaningful and happy Christmas?
Right, because all these things are supposed to be really great, wonderful, amazing things that we do and celebrate.
Exactly. But Christmas Eve or Christmas morning, who carves the turkey, who gets to buy for your kids, or who gets to be Santa Claus this year, or who gets to, bring the fruitcake or whatever. So all these things, are wonderful things, but if you're not careful, these traditions begin to clash as you're married and as your family expands and grows. And so working through these things, understanding these things, asking yourself how much you're willing to compromise is important. Asking yourself which one of these traditions am I going to die on, so to speak. That's important to know. Because again, if we're not careful, we'll make the holiday about us, or we'll make the holiday about the tradition. And that's a very difficult thing to do because the holiday, the Christmas season, is about the Lord and about honoring Him. And so you may have to ask the question, is what I'm saying or doing going to honor the Lord? And if not, you may want to back off of whatever it is that you're about to get upset about.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a great point that, traditions are meant to enhance what we do
Exactly.
and enhance the season
Right.
and to help it be more enjoyable
Yes.
and something that we love. But the real reason for the season, like you said, is the Lord.
Yep.
We celebrate Jesus' birthday on this, and I'm pretty sure that, if I have somebody over for my birthday, I don't want all my guests coming over and fighting over how we're going to celebrate my birthday.
Right.
I'd rather they just celebrate me.
Who gets to open the gifts first?
That's right.
And how many do you get to open up at one time? And
Oh, yes. Do we open them one at a time, or do we all open them at the same time?
At the same time,
That's right.
exactly. So there's lots of different traditions that are out there that we have to be mindful of.
Well, today our first question comes written in, and if you are listening, if you want to get in touch with us, we would love to answer your questions. We really do enjoy doing this. This has been a joy for both of us.
Yeah.
And so if you want to get in touch with us and ask your question, you can email us at familyanswerman@loumc.org. Again, that's familyanswerman@loumc.org. And we would love to answer those questions. The ones that we have for today, it says that, and this is a long question.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and read through it, and if we need, we can jump back in or kind of process some of the info in it. But it says, my husband and I were married this year. We both bring children into the marriage. So I bring 2 girls, age 6 and 9. He brings a girl and a boy, ages 9 and 11. All of the children will be with us this Christmas season. His side of the family has a tradition of opening gifts given by his parents on Christmas Eve, so the grandparents on his side. His parents have stated that they will not be getting my kids anything for Christmas on Christmas Eve because my children are not their grandchildren. Any suggestions, as this is causing strife between us?
Whoa, yeah. And that's unfortunate. And again, we don't have all the reasons behind the grandparents as to why they're not buying gifts for these children. At first glance, it sounds like that this is not a very Christmas holiday way of behaving. But with that being said, we don't know all the untold stories, so I want to be a little cautious there. But with that being said, let's focus on what we have control over. That's the first and primary principle. Let's always focus on what we have control over. That being said, number 2, we should never make a child feel unwelcomed or unloved. And that's important to note. We never make a child feel unwelcomed or unloved. The moment you marry is the third point. You leave and you cleave. The moment you marry, you leave and you cleave. So these 3 principles, number 1, only focus on what you have control over. Number 2, never make a child feel unwelcomed or unloved. And number 3, the moment you marry, you leave your father and your mother and you cleave to your spouse. So let's unpack this. Now, neither of these individuals, neither of these parents can control what his parents will or will not do.
Right.
So going to the parents and saying, or to the grandparents, if you will, and saying you're wrong for not giving the kids gifts, you're a bad person or whatever, that may not be the answer. So you cannot control what they will or will not do. For whatever reason, they have made their intentions known. So here are some ideas to think about.
Okay.
Number 1, let the parents buy gifts for the children to open up on Christmas Eve. So in other words, if the grandparents are not going to buy, their step-grandchildren gifts, then let the parents buy some gifts so the children have something to open on Christmas Eve. Maybe it can be from Santa Claus. Maybe it can be from, the parents. Make it very clear, this is from us. Maybe especially from the step-parent. And I hope the step-parent has maybe a what I call a fun name. Maybe instead of being Mr. Jones or whatever, that they can be, Popsy or something along these lines. Some fun name that you give to someone that you love, that you care about, that you're sharing your life with. And so maybe the gifts can be from them. If that's not acceptable, then form a new tradition. Maybe it's time to form a new tradition. Maybe they need to open up Christmas Eve gifts just at their home. Maybe they need not go to the grandparents' home for Christmas Eve. Maybe some things need to change. The loyalty is to always be to your spouse, and that includes your children. That is the primary principle. Your loyalty is to your spouse, and that includes his or her children. So again, that's very important to understand and to note. New traditions happen all the time as family dynamics change. And so again, it may be time for a new tradition to begin. Giving gifts is done out of love. Giving gifts is done out of grace. And so again, I think this is important that we understand why we're giving these gifts, the importance of these gifts, because it is an expression of love. It is an expression of grace. But the main thing is what you never want to do is to have Christmas or the traditions of Christmas come between you and your spouse. You never want Christmas or the traditions of Christmas to come between you and your spouse. Nothing comes between you and your spouse. That is one of the laws of purity, I will argue, that is so powerful and so important for married couples.
And I would agree with that. Unpack that a little bit. One of the laws of purity that comes between a married couple.
Again, there's so many things out there that want to come between you and your spouse. It may be an addiction, maybe another person. It may be, maybe in some cases, a hobby, maybe something, or an attitude. You want to keep the openness and the transparency between you and your spouse as pure as possible. And you don't want anything to pollute that. And in some cases, there may be a tradition. I've met guys who say, hey, look, our tradition is we go duck hunting on Christmas morning,
right,
or whatever. Well, that may be fine, when you were single. That may be fine, years ago. That may be fine maybe in your first marriage even. But the reality is, if it's not working in this relationship and it's coming between you and your spouse, you are to dismiss that. You are to say, you know what? I'm not going to allow duck hunting to come between me and my spouse. Because if I do, then that is now defying the law of purity. I'm now bringing something that's going to be a wedge between us.
Yeah, and so dismiss anything that causes distance between you and your spouse.
Exactly. And again, back to what I said earlier, you never want a child to feel unloved or unwanted at Christmas. Traditions are great, but sometimes they can be altered. Sometimes they can be changed. And sometimes traditions can be redefined. And so hopefully that will cause the grandparents maybe to rethink some things. Again, we don't know what's going on with these grandparents. We don't know, maybe they have the finances, perhaps. They may not have the financial means. They may feel that they are taking the place of the biological grandparents, and they don't want to interrupt or disrupt that, perhaps. They may not know what to get the children. They may not have that relationship established. And so there's many factors and variables. And again, we're trying to be as gracious as we possibly can in this question. But hopefully, after it's all said and done, the grandparents will rethink some things concerning giving gifts to their step-grandchildren, if you will, so they can feel the love and the excitement and the joy of this tradition that they share at Christmas time.
Right, and that's one of those things that, like you said, we're trying to give a lot of grace. This is, again, Family Answer Man, we have questions that are written in. We don't have a lot of context. We can't always speak to specific circumstances and don't know a whole story and a whole lifetime that has led to this moment. However, you brought up a great point of communicating with those grandparents and trying to figure out a way maybe that maybe the grandparents can adjust their tradition or add to the tradition. And
exactly, because adjustment is the key to every relationship, because every relationship is changing. And so what has happened now, these grandparents have a new set of grandchildren, if you will, in their life. If they do not learn how to make the adjustment, or if they do not see the importance of making the adjustment, they won't adjust. So maybe for a year or two, the parents need to have a brand new tradition. This may give the grandparents a time to pause and rethink their position, rethink their tradition, rethink, how they see things, and make the adjustment so that all the children will get a gift from the grandparents.
Right. And that's, if you think about it, I don't know that any grandparent would, if their child adopted a child, would say, oh, that's not my grandchild. No, it's your adopted grandchild. And so it's a very similar situation with blended families, And
the thing is, so many people, when they're first put into a situation, they're not quite sure how to handle it.
Right. A lot of uncertainty.
They just don't know how to handle it. They don't know what to say. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to handle it. They have not received any real instruction. They think what they're doing at the moment seems reasonable to them. They may not recognize how it's coming across or how it's being perceived. And so sometimes you just need to, again, hear what's happening, rethink what's going on, make the adjustment, and recognize, you know what, I think I might not have thought this, through. I think maybe my decision was not the best one. Maybe we should have given this more consideration before we made this, particular statement or whatever. So that, again, the grandparents can, with the adjustment, learn from their mistake, learn what they've said and done, and again, make the adjustment so that all the children feel welcomed and loved.
Yeah. And that's something that, like you said, I think the never make a child feel unwelcome or unloved is just a great general rule of thumb to live by.
Exactly.
For all of us. You mentioned focusing on what we have control over.
Right.
Knowing that that's the focus and that's what this couple is going to have to do. But then looking also to the reality that there is a set of grandparents that this is a tradition, and the tradition then isolates, just by the nature of what has happened in the past, the two new children that are in the family for them.
Right.
How would you suggest that this couple go about having that conversation with the grandparents?
Right. Again, there may be something that is said along the lines of, look, we need to have something for all the children. And if the grandparents push back and say, absolutely not, we only give to our grandkids or whatever, then that's when the parents can say, well, if that's how it's going to be, then we're going to have to politely choose not to be a part of that tradition. Because that tradition does not line up now with who we are as a family.
Yeah.
And that's important to know. And then if the grandparents, hopefully, will be humble enough to say, well, let's rethink this, and hey, let's do something different. Oh, we didn't realize that's how we were coming across. We didn't realize that's what was being presented. We didn't realize that we were being so divisive, so restrictive, if you will. Then maybe they will have a renewal of their mind. Maybe they will rethink things. Maybe they will begin to recognize what they were saying and doing, and the pain it was causing.
Yeah. And you mentioned the parents providing the gift, even if that's something that I can imagine that there's out there somewhere, there's a set of grandparents that they just don't have the means to provide gifts for 4 grandchildren.
Right.
Or maybe they have grandchildren with other, their other kids.
Right.
And so maybe this couple saying, hey, you know what, we'll help you out. We'll supply some of those gifts so that the kids don't feel like they're the collateral damage in the situation.
Exactly. Because the point is this. The point is to provide, protect the children while promoting God's amazing love at Christmas. That's what Christmas is about. It's about providing, protecting, for children, promoting God's love, promoting God's grace, promoting, the birth of Messiah. And again, if that's the emphasis, then we've done something. Again, most kids, they love the expensive toys, but most kids, are pretty much happy in a lot of cases with anything that's kind of new and different and that you could unwrap or whatever, especially at this age.
Right.
The kids are 6 and 9. Most children that are 6 and 9 that I know, my grandkids are in that age range, they're pretty happy with just about anything that is new and shiny and interesting and that you can unwrap or whatever. They may not play with it but a day or two, but the day of Christmas morning, they're pretty excited about anything they can unpack.
Right. And a lot of times it is more than, what's inside a package.
Right.
It is what has been given with that item, which is its love.
Exactly. Exactly. So again, I hope this will help this couple. Again, as we said earlier, traditions are important, but again, they come and go, they change as the family dynamics begin to change as well.
Yes, indeed. So when we're looking at these issues about these circumstances with blended families at Christmas, what are some traditions that a new family can implement?
Right.
That's going to help to make a family cohesive and like you said, kind of that's going to reinforce the love that these these kids specifically can experience during Christmas?
Well, again, some of the things I think you have to be intentional because with the blended family, you are getting to know not only your spouse, but also your spouse's children. And so you have to become intentional. By that, I mean this. You can't just expect things to happen. You can't just expect things to fall into place because schedules are important. Is this our weekend to have the kids? Do we have the kids till 7:00 tonight? What's going on there? So you have to schedule, when are we going to put up the tree? And if you want all the kids involved, then you have to put up the tree when all the kids are there. Okay.
Right.
And so you have to be intentional. You have to be inclusive, meaning we want everybody there. We want everybody to have a part and, let's make this, let's bake that, let's string this to put on the tree. Or maybe let's go buy a very special ornament that signifies our first Christmas as a family together, or as a new family, or as a blended family, however how you want to phrase it. But here's some things that we can do. And not only that, but I think, taking the children shopping for the other parent is a sign of grace and love and civility, and it's a sign of the Christmas season.
Yeah.
So that you can bring the children to buy something for their mom, or you can bring the kids to buy something for their dad, or you can bring the kids to buy something for their stepmom or for their stepdad. And so you're being intentional, you're being inclusive, and you're including the kids in this wonderful tradition that shows that, hey, love is real, grace is real, and we can be civil, and we can be loving, and we can be gracious to one another, even though there may be still some pain and some animosity and some wounds that have not healed yet. This is how it's often done.
Well, I think that's a great thing to remember. A lot of times it's easy for us to focus our world based off of our worldview, based off of our focus, our view, our immediate circumstances, and forget, and especially in these circumstances, I know with stepchildren or with, like you said, taking your kids shopping for their mom or their dad, your kids still love their mom or their dad as their mom or their dad.
Exactly.
And like you said, there might still be a lot of hurt for you personally, which is completely understandable in a lot of circumstances, but still helping these kids to manage and to reduce conflict between the whole co-parenting dynamic that has to happen during holidays.
And one of the things that I think, this is tough for all of us, and I'll just own it, it's tough for me, tough for everybody, but the reality is that we believe that Jesus is the gift that came at Christmas.
That's right.
Okay. But the Word of God makes it very clear that God gave this gift not because we were such wonderful people, but because we were sinners. We were at enmity with Him.
That is a great thing to point out.
That God gave us this gift not because we earned it or deserved it or were so lovable to receive it. He gave us this gift at Christmas time when we didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
When we did nothing to earn it, when there was nothing, in other words, we really deserved everything, that would be wrathful and condemning, if you will. But instead, the gift of grace and truth showed up.
Yeah.
So the point in saying that is gifts are to be given not just to those we love and care about,
right?
But honestly, if we're going to keep the real tradition of Christmas, gifts should be given to those that maybe we're not that fond of or who are fond of us. And that's something to think about. Now, is that easy? Look, listening audience, I'm going to be honest with you. It is not easy. It's not easy for me. It's not easy for anybody listening. But the reality is God gave this amazing gift to all of us when we were sinners.
Yeah.
And that is important to understand. And so that is a tradition that I think we need to think about. Reaching out to those individuals that don't love us or that maybe we have a hard time loving. And that's something, again, it's not easy at all. But I will argue this, that is when we will see the most power of Christmas during that moment. It's not easy, and I'm not saying that I'll be able to do it. this year. I'll try like everybody else. But my point is that is when Christmas really looks like Christmas, because that's what Christmas was all about. That Jesus showed up, that Christ came into the world when we were an enemy of God.
Right, and you bring that up. We were enemies of God. Christ came into this world as God's gift to us. And that is the example that we follow. That is what we pursue as His children, is to act and look like and show the same love and grace that our Father has shown to us.
And so the blended family, it's a very challenging moment, a very challenging system, if you will, family system. But if you bring in traditions, if you bring in lots of love, if you are inclusive, if you are intentional of the time that you have, if you show grace to those that the children love, if you show and share moments that, again, lift up the name of Jesus, I will argue that will be things that will bring a sense of bonding and attachment to you and to the rest of the family. Again, Christmas Eve services, Christmas morning services this year, for example, are great things that you can do as a blended family. Reading Luke 2, 1 through 20, the Christmas story, before you open up gifts or whatever it may be. But these new traditions, these things you can do with your new blended family, can be a blessing to you and to the children for years to come. And it creates the sense of attachment. As we've said time and time again in this program, attachment is the key word. We are wired, we are created, we are designed to be in attachment with our family, with our siblings, with our parents, with our spouse, grandparents. Everyone we love deeply. That attachment is so powerful and so important. And if we are constantly thinking of ways to ensure that attachment and to keep that attachment healthy, then you've got something that is unique and wonderful, and what I'll argue you are designed to have by God Himself.
Well, and you talked about being intentional, and if you are intentional with a blended family at this time of year, something that is naturally stressful and naturally creates conflict and anxiety, uncertainty, can actually be leveraged to create, like you said, new attachment. It can be leveraged to actually be a healing moment between, families where they grow closer together, where they do learn the all important attribute and trait in life of being able to forgive others and be gracious to those that have not been gracious to us.
Exactly.
So again, looking at blended families and traditions, it's one thing that pops in my mind when you're doing that and talking about grace is, including, you talked about decorating a Christmas tree, just decorate it with blended ornaments, just like you would. Yeah. If you put all of your ornaments on the tree, well, it's your tree. It's not our tree. So those things that bridge those gaps.
And children are going to notice this. Children will notice it. They will sense it. They will recognize it. They will begin to weigh it. If their stepbrother opens up, an Xbox, whatever, and then they open up some Tinker Toys, okay, they're going to weigh that out a little bit. I'm not saying everything has to be dollar for dollar. I'm not saying that necessarily, but be mindful and recognize that they're going to weigh, and they're going to compare, and they're going to contrast. And so be as sensitive to that as you possibly can. Again, the older they get, of course, the more this is going to be reality. But the reality is that, this is something we need to be very much cognizant of as we are preparing these new traditions with this new blended family.
And there you have it from the family answer man himself. We want to thank the incredible people at Winter's Air and Days Smokehouse and Specialty Meats for underwriting today's show. As a reminder, this is not a therapy session. This is not specific advice to your circumstances, but we do want to speak into the questions that you have and answer those for you. So if you would like to get in touch with us, you can email us at familyanswerman@loumc.org. Again, familyanswerman@loumc.org. We would love to hear from you, be able to answer those questions that you have. We hope that this episode of the Family Answer Man will encourage you and inspire you to make changes that will lead to a stronger, healthier, and happier family.